morning, everyone. On this beautiful July morning, can't think of a better way to start it off than with a little bit of George Gershwin. That was beautiful, Diane. Thank you. I'm Bob Williamson, today's service coordinator. I hope you all had a great July 4th. It's a special day in our country and all of our lives. Today's service is a little bit different. We want to counteract the political negativity that surrounds us by sharing readings that inspire us, make us grateful for where we live, and what we are doing in our lives. In short, we'll be examining the value of choosing a beautiful life. To do this, we're inviting 5 North Chapel beauties to share passages that have special meaning to them and why they picked their pieces. Our speakers are Frances Updegrove, Jane Hufferdon, Peg Brightman, Joelle Seavey, and Joanne Reichel. After our opening hymn, Frances Updegrove will lead off, but before we hear from her and the others, I need to share a few words. You probably noticed the unusual picture on today's order of service. It's from a painting entitled, "Oh, What a View." I brought the original here for you to check out. So you can see some of the key detail on the gorilla's goggles. My brother-in-law, Powers McGuire, made the painting. It always makes me smile. I love the improbability of it all. Joy and wonder radiate from the gorilla's face as it gazes at a majestic ski hill reflected on his goggles. He's literally going ape. Downhill skiers know that feeling. They go ape with the prospect of first tracks and fresh powder. Whimsy is a subject Powers explores in other paintings. One called Madonna and Child pairs portraits of Madonna the singer and Julia Child. You get the idea. Powers' paintings invite us to laugh. Life is too serious to be taken seriously all the time. There is real beauty in that. When I learned of our theme today, the value of choosing a beautiful life, I remembered a wonderful film, Life is Beautiful, which won an Academy Award for Best Foreign Picture in 1998. I won't share the full plot, but the protagonist, an Italian Jew during World War II, buoys his spirit and that of his young son while they're in a Nazi concentration camp. He tells his son that they're playing an elaborate game. Complaining about anything has points taken away from them, and the one with the most points at the end wins an army tank. When their camp is finally liberated by Allied forces, his son gets to ride triumphantly atop a tank. The Holocaust is certainly no laughing matter, but the endearing charm of the actor, Roberto Benigni, captures your heart, and through tears of sorrow, you find laughter even in the darkest places. At the end, you believe with all your heart that life is beautiful. Roberto Benigni makes you a believer.
So it's so wonderful to see the chapel so filled today with beautiful colors and faces. It's wonderful. So I was grappling with this subject matter for weeks, and this morning I finally came up with what I was going to say. I think it might be something different. So I live in South Pomfret at a place that I've lived in for over 40 years and raised my family, my children there. And over the years, I've shaped my little piece of land, and there's no place I'd rather be. There's beauty all around me. I wanted to talk a bit about my garden because that's where I'm focusing right now, on my vegetable garden. And I've been working like a slave. And everything is doing well, except I had a little crisis early on when the basil didn't germinate. And so I replanted it, and it just germinated perfectly, almost a universal germination. And they're such exquisite little plants, just exquisite emerald green plants when they come up. So I know I'm still got the bug if I get really excited about those little plants coming up. So I also wanted to talk about what's been called nature baths. going out into nature. And right now the garden is filling me with that. But at other times of the year, if I'm having trouble being too much in my own head, I go for a walk, and it always works. So with that in mind, I'm going to read a poem by Mary Oliver called Thirst, from a collection called Thirst. The poem is called When I Am Among the Trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine."
Although I knew what I wanted to say and what I wanted to read, it's taken me a couple of weeks to kind of break it down into how I feel about it. So I've chosen to read a quote from George Bernard Shaw today. He says, "This is the true joy in life, being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is not a brief candle, it's sort of a splendid torch, which I have got to hold for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." That quote speaks to me. It speaks to my true self. When I hear that quote, I hear him speaking of belonging, and belonging through service. Not servitude, but service. Servitude is a power dynamic. One person has the power over another. One person's decisions dictate the quality of another person's life, and that other person is completely subjected to those decisions. But service is a choice. Time is also a great equalizer. We all have a finite amount of time on this earth, in these bodies, and that time is precious. Turns out you don't get a bonus for your bank balance, and you don't get a bonus in time for your job title, and as much as I've tried, your ego cannot earn you any more time either. So how we choose to spend our time, that demonstrates our values. And who we choose to spend that time with also dictates the quality of our lives, I believe. When we look at our lives through that lens, service becomes a joy. We all come together on a Sunday and we serve each other. We are choosing to spend our precious time together to refill each other's cups with compassion and companionship and with love. And that's the service that we give to each other, and also the service that we're receiving right now. So I find myself meditating on a couple of questions when I consider that quote and I consider my own thoughts about time and service. Does the way that I spend my time right now truly reflect my own values? Is my own torch burning as brightly as possible? So bright, in fact, that my daughter will be able to see my own values. And have I fueled my own torch enough so that as I pass it on to her, she will be able to see her own way and find her own values and find her own community?
My father played us Chopin, my mother read us Dickens. I never chose a beautiful life. Rather, I felt that beauty chose me. When I was a young child sitting on my Nana's lap, she showed me photographs of gorgeous marble sculpture depicting athletes, gods, and heroes of ancient Greece and Rome. Then came the joy of being allowed to dance around the living room wearing one of her evening dresses, to music on records with my younger sister. It was always beauty that seized me, and I could not let go. Music especially took me over. I was also captivated by the beautiful illustrations in books. One library book illustration so entranced me that although I knew it was the worst possible sin, I gently and carefully tore out a beautiful illustration from the library book at about age 3 or 4. And of course, my mother was horrified. She pictured me in a life of crime. I was constantly in love with whatever beauty surrounded me. One Christmas, my Swedish grandparents built a miniature theater for me and my sister with real lights and hand-sewn velvet curtains. We went up to the attic, dark, cold, and dare I say dusty, and we enacted our own plays for hours, tearing the wigs off dolls as they changed roles. In school, too, I fell in love with beauty. When I saw the pitch black hair of Pierre Bonin and white skin as he sat in front of me in first grade, I fell in love with that. In high school, I attended all-state chorus, and Iva D. Hyatt was the guest conductor. I was so excited by the experience that I decided to go to Smith College, where she directed choral music. That was one of the most exciting aspects of my 4 years at Smith. Surely the choral music with Iva D. will stay with me forever. In college, I also took dance to get out of the gym requirement for some reason, and I discovered that dance was something I could do given hard work and determination. And in dancing, I realized I could live in the very heart of music. So dance became my career path, much to the dismay of my family. Later in grad school, I discovered that shaping clay with my bare hands was intoxicating. And later, photography became another great pleasure. During most of my adult life, I was engaged in singing with small groups and found joy in that too. That, along with having a life as a dancer and choreographer, all of those things wove together a life of great joy for me. These days, I find myself engaged in and deeply committed to writing poetry. Although I'd always loved words and had studied poetry in midlife, I never had the time or energy to devote to it at the time. I've been working with the Wednesday Poets since I think 2016 or 17, a group that meets now twice a week on Zoom. We share and work on poetry. It is deeply satisfying to be able to connect with others and engage in learning and figuring out ways of grappling with beauty and meaning in our lives. I will conclude with a brief poem I wrote earlier this year while I was on Block Island, entitled Island Idol. Turn the clock face to the wall. Time rules here by tug of wave and slant of sunlight's shadow fall. Put your calendar aside. Mark each day with crest of tide and cricket song. For a day, a week or two, this stolen idol is a gift, something taken from a book, marked with strands of seaweed.
Good morning. For the last 13 years, I've worked as a nanny. It wasn't the job I planned on or my parents planned on for when I completed my science degree. But due to circumstance and timing, I started watching my nephew when he was just a few months old. and have had the blessing of working with newborns and infants and toddlers ever since. In this work, I've seen how people are born with an innate ability to be fully present. I have been struck by the power and beauty of presence and have been relearning how to practice this, not only for the children I work with, but also for my husband, friends, acquaintances, strangers, the world around me, and myself. For me, presence has become a guiding star in how I move through the world, a goal and tool that fosters gratitude, compassion, and connection. In 1995, Thich Nhat Hanh gave a Dharma talk called True Presence, where he discusses 4 mantras. Here's an excerpt from that talk, condensed a bit for time. The greatest gift we can make to others is our true presence. I am here for you is a mantra to be uttered in perfect concentration. And if you are truly present, this mantra will provide a miracle. You become real, the other person becomes real, and life is real in that moment. You bring happiness to yourself and the other person. I know you are there and I am very happy, is the second mantra. When I look at the moon, I breathe in and out deeply and say, full moon, I know you are there and I am very happy. To be really present and know that the other is also there is a miracle. Whenever you are really there, you are able to recognize and appreciate the presence of the other. The full moon, the North Star, the magnolia flowers, or the person you love the most. The third mantra is, I know you suffer. That is why I am here for you. When you are mindful, you notice when the person you love suffers. If we suffer, and if the person we love is not aware of our suffering, we will suffer even more. Just practice deep breathing, sit close to the one you love and say, I know you suffer, that is why I am here for you. Your presence alone will relieve a lot of their suffering. The fourth mantra is the most difficult. It is practiced when you yourself suffer and you believe that the person you love is the one who has caused you to suffer. The mantra is, I suffer, please help. If anyone else had said or done that to you, you would not suffer so much, but because it was the person you love, you feel deeply hurt. But if you really love them, when you suffer like that, you have to ask for help. In true love, there is no place for pride. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Jill Reichel, and to say it's an honor to be up here is an understatement, especially among the other speakers today. Some beautiful, beautiful thoughts. When I refer to God in the following, I respectfully refer to the divine of all faiths. Cultivating a beautiful state of being, based upon the teachings of Shaprithaji and Shri Krishnaji. Stress is a toxin, a poison in our body, damaging our health, our relationships, who we are, and who we're meant to become. To learn and understand how to handle this underlying problem of stress is to live in a beautiful state. On varying levels, everyone is stressed. We find it in relationships with our families, our friends, our community, ourselves, and dare I say, with God. I know some of you are thinking, hold up, Joe, I don't have any problems with God, and nor do I. However, I'd like to share a story with you, a personal story of when I called my mom one day. It was years ago, and it was straight after a meltdown I had, and throwing an epic temper tantrum aimed towards God. And when I say epic, I mean a toddler, hyped on sugar, exhausted to the core, and throwing themselves a pity party kind of epic temper tantrum. It was huge. And to this, my mom responded very gently and lovingly, I'm so grateful you're still talking to God. And then she asked if I apologized, which naturally I did. Through a lot of tears, but I apologized. Stress usually refers to tension, yet anger, fear, loneliness, frustration, regret, these are all states of stress. A no-stress state, called a beautiful state, is one of connection, joy, vitality, and passion. It is how life feels without stress. We are calm and we are present. To better understand the choice between a beautiful state and a state of stress, I like to share a fable about two monks, Yes Me and No Me. Yes Me and No Me are returning to their monastery after a day of teaching in a nearby village. They were about to cross the river when they heard a woman crying. Yes Me went over to ask what was troubling her. Sorry, lost my train here. So the woman replies that her toddler is in the village across the river. Since the river has risen so high, she feels miserable that she will not be able to cross and be with her child. If she doesn't return, her child will be scared and cry for her all night. On hearing this, Yes Me volunteers to help her. Yes Me carries her across the river, drops her safely to the other side, and just moves on. About a half hour into their walk, very agitated or in a stressful state, No Me speaks up. Yes Me, do you know what you have done? Calmly turning, Yes Me looks at No Me, who continues. Our master said, never look at a woman, and yet you spoke to her. Our master says, never speak to a woman, and yet you touched her. Our master said, never touch a woman, and yet you carried her. Again, very calmly, Yes Me responds, you are correct. However, I set her down about a half hour ago. It is you who continues to carry her. These two monks represent the states of being. Yes Me, the beautiful state, No Me, the state of stress. We live with outside factors that create pressure on us. They do not create stress. How you handle the pressure and from which state you are reacting, either the energy of stress or the energy of a beautiful state, influence every choice and action we make. From which state do we want to live our life? From which state do we want to interact and relate to the people in our life? And from which state do we want to achieve and fulfill every vision of our life? Self-awareness of your emotions, mindfulness of your breath, meditated prayer, and trust in God cultivate a beautiful state of being. The power to peace is always within us. The teachings of Shaprithaji and Shri Krishnaji go much deeper than I have touched upon here. This message of a beautiful state is neither mine nor theirs. It's God's message spoken through us all. May your days ahead be experienced in a beautiful state. When your beautiful state falters, and trust me, it will, may awareness of your breath, meditated prayer, and trust in your God course correct you ever more swiftly back to a beautiful state. Much appreciation. Thank you.